You started? Thank you, everyone, for participating in this evening's Oregon Board of Agriculture meeting. This is September 3rd, second, third, fourth, September 3rd, Wednesday. And I'm Elin Miller, Chair of the Board, and I would like to call this meeting to order. The meeting is being recorded. What I'd like to ask is board members and guests, please state your name for the record in advance of your speaking, and that will help us when we deal with the minutes later. I'd like to begin by asking our very brand new Department of Agriculture Board Coordinator, if you haven't had a chance to meet him, John Boyce, to please review a few housekeeping items for us for this meeting.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here and back in Oregon. Just a few housekeeping items for those joining online. Please mute your phones or computer audio during the call to prevent unnecessary background noise. And we request only the board members and presenters when you're presenting to turn on your camera to minimize the impact on bandwidth. And then if you are joining by conference call only, the pre-meeting materials are posted on the ODA website and can be found at oda.direct/boardagriculture, or additional materials will be posted after the meeting. And as a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and for those in the room, restrooms are to the back, water at the back table, and I think that's all I've got.
All right, thank you, John. And I'd also like to take an opportunity to thank Sherry Kudna. Sherry has been interim with many other hats in helping us with board coordination since Carla had left. And well, I'm sure we'll have a chance to say more, but I did want to recognize that up front since we have a real team there helping us for this board meeting. So. John, would you please call the roll for introductions, and I'll begin. Elin Miller, Farmer, Umpqua.
Chad Allen.
Chad Allen, Dairyman and Tillamook.
Barbara Boyer.
Barbara Boyer, Chair of the Soil and Water Conservation Commission.
Mike Dill.
Mike Dill, Public Member on the Board.
Ty Cleaver.
Ty Cleaver, Klamath Basin, farmer, hay producer, brewer, and barbecuer.
Kirk Mogg.
Kirk Mogg, Public Member.
Ellie Norris.
Ellie Norris, Farmer, Umpqua.
Eric Orem.
Eric Orem, Farmer, Hepner.
Josh Zielinski. Don't see him online. Miguel Lopez. Dean Stacy Simonich, she's absent as well. And then Director Lisa Sharpelaws Hansen.
Close. Good evening, Lisa Sharpelaw Hansen, Director, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
And then a quick note to those joining online, please use the chat box as the sign-in sheet to provide your name as well as your organization. So that way we have a record of who's joining the meeting. And then I'll monitor the chat box for technical issues only, so please refrain from using the chat box to chat with board members or others on the call. And then if we had, do we have anyone joining us by conference call only? I see a few of you folks online. We could start with Leslie, if you could introduce yourself.
Leslie Druffel with the McGregor Company.
Perfect, thank you. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, John. It was probably about a year ago when we decided to change the format of our meetings and allow for really a lot more opportunity to spend some time with the communities where we were visiting. And I'll say this: we've had great presentations, but I to date have not had someone say, "Well, we have it all coordinated. We've been working through this and everything else," so I don't have much to do as far as introductions, other than to introduce Dave Henson. I wish I could read. Hensley, sorry, Dave, to introduce Dave, who will be coordinating the panel in almost like a a Q&A kind of session with the panel. So I think this will be very, very informative to learn about priority issues here for us to kick up our meeting. And I do want to remind everyone also that we are going to be having a reception. It'll be on the 3rd floor of the main building after this is finished. So you're all invited to come there as well. So Dave, I'll turn this over to you and have your panel members come on up.
Squeeze on in. We're expecting one more member of the panel. He should be here in a second. He's always late.
That's actually his name.
Yeah, we actually just call him Scott Late Soyce.
Oh, that makes sense now.
I'll just plug him in here next to me. So first, let me say thank you for the opportunity to visit with you guys today. I know some of you on the board. Mr. Cleaver, good to see you again. Ty's daughter is my ranch sitter, so we're really good friends, and I adore her and that family. So thanks for the opportunity to sit with you guys and talk a little bit. Thank you for the latitude to provide you a presentation that's maybe a little bit different. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves and briefly who they are before we get started. But what we're going to do is we were asked to talk about things that were important to agriculture in the basin and some of our struggles that we're facing when it comes to agriculture in the basin. So I met with the panel and said, okay, this is kind of the open-ended question. What do you want to talk about? And then we identified 4 areas that we want to touch on. So we've come up with a question in each of those areas. I'm just going to MC for them, and I'll fill in my 2 cents as well. And we're just going to have a conversation amongst the panel, and we're going to bounce ideas off each other and play off each other and talk about these topics. And then we anticipate that we're going to leave about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A that you can ask us about things we brought up or get into more of the weeds about any particular topic that we bring up. So before we go any further, let me introduce myself, and then I'll have the panel introduce themselves. As Ellen said, I'm Dave Hensley. I was a Klamath County Commissioner here in Klamath County. Did a term doing that. It was a wonderful opportunity to get to know Klamath County, specifically agriculture, and some of the challenges that we face. My wife and I own 5H Cattle Company in Merrill. And after my term of commissioner was over, I went to work with a firm called United Strategies and Consulting, and I represent and lobby for all issues related to agriculture in the basin. So I find myself in Salem fighting quite a bit for Klamath agriculture, and I'm passionate about that, and I love that opportunity. Specifically, I work and lobby for the Klamath Water Users Association. So, Commissioner, I'm going to start with you, and then let's go around the table and just do a brief intro.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Commissioner Kelly Minty. I've been in office about a decade, and I'm really glad we have this panel. They will certainly be the producers and the experts. I also like that I have this little, it looks like a red button in front of me, because if they say anything bad about the county, I'm just going to go boom. And that's really my role here. No, I'm kidding. My role is really to speak to the intersectionality of the ag issues and the greater community, whether it's the way they impact economic development, whether it's the way they impact our county infrastructure, whether it's when I'm wearing my policy-making hat. There's just so many ways that our ag community interfaces and intersects with the greater Klamath community, so that will be my portion.
Hello, Mark Staunton. I'm a 4th-generation farm in the Klamath Basin. I actually grew up on the California side, and now I moved to the Oregon side of the state line, down in the lower basin, so right between Tule Lake and Merrill Malin, in that part of what we call lower Klamath Basin. I'm actually an owner-operator of a family farm there. We are like diversified row crop farming, potatoes, onions, garlic, alfalfa, grains, and all the rest. I'm also the president of Calor Produce, which is a potato packing company that delivers fresh market potatoes all throughout the West, but primarily Oregon, California, Arizona. We also own a trucking company, and I'm the president of the trucking company, as well as chair of most recent purchase, Wainema Elevators, which is a owner-operated grain storage facility in the Klamath Basin. I also sit on the Klamath Water User Board as well as the Drought Response Agency Chair. And then in my spare time, I have 4 kids who are also all in school in the Lower Basin, Lost River, and Malin Elementary. And so I also am on the Klamath County School Board. So those are a few of the hats I wear.
Hi, I'm Carrie Berkshire. I am the current president of the Klamath County Cattlewomen. I moved up to Klamath about 10 years ago and have embraced this community and think that there's such great opportunity for both an ag producer, a grower, as well as just a community member. Let's see, I can't top Mark as far as all the stuff, but I'm on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Fremont Wainema Forest. I'm on the Klamath County Fair Board, and what else? My husband's a ditch rider, so he knows the ag stuff as well.
My name is Brooke Boyce. I live in Tule Lake. I am a California and an Oregon brand inspector. My boyfriend and I run about 100 head on both sides of the border. So just like Mark, we have a lot of experience with dealing with all the things, all the different rules and regulations. I am a past Cattlewomen's president and also a past state area VP for the Oregon Cattlewomen.
Thanks, Dave. Good afternoon, Mike McCohen. I'm a farmer producer down in the Merrill area. I grow potatoes, DI onions, peppermint, wheat, and alfalfa, not necessarily by choice on the last one. Most of those crops both organically and conventionally. I'm the vice chair of the Klamath Water Users, the vice chair of the Drought Response Agency. I'm a director of Van Brimmer Ditch Company, which is the oldest irrigation district here in the basin. It has the oldest water right, which means absolutely nothing to OWRD. I have 10-year-old twins who keep me quite busy. And as a side note, I've been on the Shipping Point Inspection Advisory Committee for, I believe, 26 years. So Lisa, Madam Director, and Casey and I have covered some ground over the years. So I'm good.
Thanks, Mike. It's interesting to see how many irrigation districts are represented today. I didn't mention I'm on the board of directors for the Klamath Basin Irrigation District, or yeah, KBID, Klamath Basin Irrigation District as well, so that's going to be an interesting perspective. Scott's calling Mark right now. He's always late. Scott Soyce will be here in a minute. He is I'll let him introduce himself and we'll just fold him right in, but he's a multi-generation farmer in the basin as well, and he's the president currently of the Klamath Water Users Association. So again, he'll fold himself in. So we were asked, quote, what matters most in agriculture and the biggest challenges you're facing? So we've broken this down into 4 categories. We're going to talk today with you about workforce. We're going to talk with you about commodities. We're going to talk with you about stability and competitiveness of agriculture in the basin. And then last, we're going to talk about what we believe agriculture's priorities are moving forward in the basin. So we're going to dive right in. Again, as we talked about, this is going to be a conversation, so let's just talk amongst friends. We thought, let's just act like we're on the couch in a living room having a glass of wine or a beer, whatever your favorite beverage is, and let's just talk about these issues as it relates to all of us and the perspectives we bring in agriculture. So number 1, panel. When you think about the future of agriculture here in the basin, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges when it comes to finding, training, and keeping the people we need to do the work? Mark?
Oh, you're going to throw me out first.
Just throw you in right now.
Yeah, my perspective is a little bit probably unique to others. As I kind of went through the list of different things, we do employ a lot of people through the different companies that I'm part of. And I've been really fortunate to have a lot of opportunities to work with a lot of wonderful, just good, solid community people. And I'd say my perspective is that probably there's 2 things really that I'd like to touch on. Hey, there's Scott Soyce. the first one, I think that we're passing a bit of the stigma of agriculture is maybe a one step in a generation for somebody to work in, like as a workforce, as a stepping stone into a career somewhere else, whether that be in a big city or be moving on. I feel like there's an opportunity right now for my generation and that next generation that if there's more skilled opportunities and more opportunities to learn technology and apply that into what we're doing, that is attracting younger people to want to stay and be part of that. I have a lot of second and third generation family employees that instead of looking elsewhere, whether it's like moving to a bigger city, moving out of state to try to find work, they are interested in staying if they are applying themselves into those technical jobs. Nobody really wants to view themselves as laboring under the sun for the rest of their life, right? That's not necessarily the most attractive thing for those younger generations. But somebody that can dive into the technical parts of linking tractors together to talk with GPSs and then syncing that type of information that's being output into those and then putting them into spreadsheets and then equating that into how we apply fertilizer and chemicals. Now those are opportunities that all of a sudden people are more attracted to and interested in. So I think as a producer in the basin, I think it's my goal to try to really develop young people that know that there's those kind of technical opportunities in our local area. The second one, I think, is also related to more the immigration side of things, and I kind of go back to the same part of, for me, immigration is a hot topic because we have some of the most hardworking individuals that work on our farms and in our communities that are some of the most outstanding people that I would call neighbors and friends that still haven't been able to receive citizenship and are still struggling to walk that fine line between being part of the community and being outcast in the community. And so I think that is something that would really help our small towns and our small schools, is to provide that path for those people. Again, I would echo that people don't want to leave our small towns and move to Salem or Portland or Texas or Utah or other places. They would like to stay in our small towns, but they have to feel security and safety. And I really think that if those things were provided, that our small towns would thrive and be productive.
Perfect comments. I'm going to take just one step back, let Scott introduce himself briefly, and then Scott, I'm just going to have you jump right into that first question, give your 2 cents, and then everybody else just jump on in. Again, it's a conversation. Feel free to jump in whenever you want.
So my name's Scott Soyce. I'm not a resident of the state of Oregon. I actually live on the California side of the border, but the one thing that you'll probably hear is a common theme here from everybody here on this panel is we're one community, and the things that happen in Oregon affect us and vice versa. That goes from everything from labor and the wages and things like that to our schools and the interaction that our kids have with one another. We're one community, and we like keeping it that way. So I live on the California side. My wife and I are raising 3 children there. My oldest son, Spencer, is going to OSU, Oklahoma State University, and so he's there in his freshman year this year, but his goal is to return back to the farm. And I can tell you, after only being gone for 3 or 4 weeks now, it feels like he's been gone for a year. But We raise horseradish, onions, mint, garlic, cereal grains, alfalfa, tea leaf, and all of this is interactive where our garlic is inspected by the state of Oregon. We are certified by ODA for our organic certificate. Our garlic fields are walked by ODA. I've served on the Oregon Mint Rootstock Advisory Committee, and we interact in water and other things. So Oregon is very much a part of who our farm is. So all of that said, we share common issues when it comes to labor, and I think if I have something to add to what Mark so well put here is that path to trying to find ways to give youth an edge into this. And so I'll just offer a suggestion or an idea, something that my wife and I started doing several years ago, was opening an opportunity for a fall harvest tour. And we invite FFA chapters from California and Oregon alike. We've had them from Central Valley in California to mostly local Oregon schools, but we invite them to bring students. And it's a run and gun type of a deal where I'm on the phone with Mike and I'm on the phone with Mark and I'm finding out where they've got things going, and they get to go see where potatoes are packed at Mark's shed, and they get to go see Mike running an onion harvest, or if he's doing something in mint, if we're ever so lucky to time these things at that time. But it's actually getting them out and letting them see a harvest happen, and then letting them see a packing process happen, and making them realize and connect where that food comes from. But more importantly, what we focus on is the job opportunities that they have in agriculture. And we focus on, and we make stops at the local fertilizer and spray operators, Macy's Flying Service, Basin Fertilizer. We've been to both of those, but we jump around and we talk about technology, and we talk about food safety, compliance, things like that are going on, just so they get an idea of the different things, the different avenues that they can start trying to work to in their high school careers to try to get to something that benefits agriculture, because we are losing our youth. And it's heartbreaking to see, and it's heartbreaking that they don't have hope in that, and it's heartbreaking that they don't see the type of opportunity that I saw when I was a young man to try to come back and farm. And a lot of that is, you know, if you're a farm kid and you have to make that decision, that's different than if you're somebody that works for a farm laborer, or somebody that just is in school with a bunch of farm kids. And how we pull those in is introduction. Like we have to give them something to be excited about. And that can be anything from being a welder to being, you know, the technical person to, I mean, there's so many great job opportunities that are well-paying jobs that are not being filled, that we are finding a shortage of on our farms now, and that we're having to overcome. And I think that I would love to see something like that happen throughout communities. And when we started doing this, it was because we were asked by some family friends down south if they could come see our farm and our community, because they came from rice country and they wanted to see something different, and they wanted to show kids what it was. And it just kind of evolved from there. But if there could be a program that had an interaction between different areas and pulled kids into different communities and showed them the exciting times and some of the things that are happening, so that kids from Lost River and Tule Lake High School can go to Woodburn or you name it and see some different type of agriculture and be immersed in what that is for a day, and draw that connection to how a hazelnut ends up in their ice cream. It would be pretty significant.
Commissioner?
Just to, well, how does a hazelnut end up in my ice cream? Just to speak to, again, to that like community intersection, they both spoke about some of the workforce issues, at least the future workforce being really impacted by technology, right? And one observation I've had, you are in the home of Oregon Tech. And I don't know how many of you know much about Oregon Tech, but it is Oregon's, you know, premier polytechnic school. We're very proud of that here in the Klamath Basin. And one way that that really intersects and sort of bolsters agriculture at least from my observation, is we do things at Oregon Tech. I was a trustee for a long time, and we do things like catalyze Klamath. And so sort of think of Shark Tank, if you will, and students have the opportunity to do these pitches and they raise money. And I will tell you what, after somebody who has emceed and judged and been involved in things like Catalyze for a long time, I would probably say 75 to 80% of the projects have an ag focus. And these aren't even ag kids. These are oftentimes students from elsewhere, but agriculture is so embedded in the sort of the community fabric that that's what really interests people. So I just think it's really a great way that our community supports ag by making it attractive, and it's really showcased the interest that Oregon Tech students have in agriculture.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was just going to add, just a good example of what Scott's talking about, and this is like totally a simple example, but all the Klamath County School District seniors have to do a senior project. I'm sure some of you guys have all experienced senior projects, but this year I had a student come to me and he was asking about if I had any ideas. And what he's doing is he's actually making YouTube videos for farmers to use for safety training videos, because if you like look for something that is relevant to Scott and I's or Mike's farm, there's not a lot of like quick information for something that we can use. So he dove in and he's making for his senior project agriculture focused, Klamath Basin focused safety training videos. And those are the things that, like, you know, if any one of us 10 years ago were thinking about, oh, this is like, those are opportunities for people to be doing, like that's crazy talk. That's silly. We wouldn't be supporting that. But those are the needs and the opportunities that youth have today that we just didn't see coming. I mean, I have an employee that has a decent following on TikTok, and it's amazing the information that he's gleaning and learning and bringing to our operation with his interaction there. Stuff that I just wouldn't be aware of. So those are a couple examples.
So we've got about 3 more minutes on this topic. I'm going to move you guys along to the next. So Mike, I'm going to jump right over to you. You employ several people in the basin. What do you believe are our challenges and opportunities when it comes to finding, hiring, keeping, training the staff that you need?
Sure. First, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'll touch on the retention, which is a big issue for me. I don't have a shortage of employees. I don't. I've got more help knocking on my door than I need. Part of that is because they cost so much. And that's one of the things I'm experiencing, and I'll back up a little bit. It's important to realize, and Scott touched on this, we're in a unique spot here. California doesn't want us. We're a nuisance. Oregon, I don't think, wants us, except, of course, they want our taxes and fees. Both of them do. But within that, as far as the labor market goes, we have to be higher than whichever state is the highest. And I think you guys have all seen it. Oregon and California and Washington too seem to be having this stupid contest. I can't declare the winner, but everybody stair steps their minimum wages, right? So I don't have a single person that's at minimum wage in any state. I mean, none. My weeders are not. My pipe crews are not. I don't have any. And every July and every December, everybody gets a raise, because that's what the breakdown is. And I don't remember which state jumps in July and which in December, but that's a reality. So now in my world, I meant to look this up, and it's one of many things I didn't get to today. In the last 3 years, my farm footprint has increased some. My labor budget has increased over 400%. My farm has not increased 400%, right? So now I'm in a spot where I'm having, and the loss of the overtime exemption is a big part of this. The paid sick leave is a big part of this. I could have counted my sick leave 5 years ago on one hand across a crew of 20. Today, I can count it on one hand every week. Even though they understand that at the end of the year, they get a bonus based on their unused paid sick time. Doesn't matter. It's paid vacation during the summer when I need them. But all of these things are coming in. So the solution is I've blown through my budget, my labor budget. It's gone. And I've only started harvest. So now we're cutting hours, right? I'm sure you guys have seen a recent California Farm Bureau study where when they look at take-home pay among farm laborers, before the overtime exemption went away, which I believe was before 3 minimum wage increases too, to now, take-home farm wage pay has gone down $100 a week. I'm quite certain the tax that goes to the state and the feds has gone up. It makes you wonder what that's all about, doesn't it? So I'm constantly fighting that. I have employees that are dying because they can't get enough hours. I'd love to give them more hours, but I can't afford it when I'm at time and a half at $20 an hour. Can't do it. So we've got that issue. The other thing is because minimum wage has gone up so much and all of the other things, my baseline labor, the bottom of the labor pool, the unskilled folks, we all have to have those in my line of work, their pay has gone up so much. I can't reward my skilled labor, the guys that worked for my grandfather. I still have some of those guys. I can't reward them as I should be. So they have effectively lost a whole bunch of wages, while these guys that come and go and blow around with the wind are making a lot more. And that it's disheartening. One, it's challenging. As hard as I try, I can't explain that to those upper level guys. So those are some of my big issues in labor.
Thank you, Mike. Carrie, Brooke, do you want to add anything on this topic?
I can be pretty brief on it. It's pretty well known that the ranching and like haying population is aging out. Kids are not coming back to the ranches. Families are selling their ranches, and part of that is because of the uncertainty in, for us, the water issues. I mean, we lose ranches because of unknown whether you're going to have water or not. But that aging out population's next generation isn't taking on those ranches like they used to. There's got to be a way to incentivize them to know that cattle ranching will remain in the basin. And right now, it's not. It's not a certainty.
That's a good point. Brooke?
I'm a cattle rancher. I cannot afford to hire people. I am my workforce because it costs too much money.
My workforce is me, my wife, and Ty's daughter.
Oh, no. It's me. My boyfriend is allergic to cattle.
Let's jump on to commodities, and we'll try to keep this to 15 minutes on this topic. Agriculture in Oregon is extremely diverse, as we all know. Everything from traditional row crops to cattle to specialty products. From your perspective, what factors are shaping the future of the commodities you're most connected to, and what keeps you up at night thinking about their long-term success? Mike, let's start with you this time.
Thanks, Dave. What keeps me up at night is being able to compete. So in the case of production here, we're somewhat limited by climate, by temperature, by elevation. We don't get 90 frost-free days. We don't. So we don't have the ability to grow some of those super special crops, those high-value crops that the west side of the Cascades gets to. Because of elevation and climate, I would say Washington and Idaho kick our behind in yield. They just have more degree days. Some might argue about soil in Washington. We've got some pretty good soil here too, but we get whooped. But what happens is with the commodities that I can grow, that's who I'm competing with. I'm competing with Idaho. I'm competing with Nevada. I'm competing with Utah. Guess what they're doing on cost of production? Their minimum wage is probably close to half of what ours is. I just looked at a study on fuel costs. They're averaging about 45 cents a gallon less for diesel than we are. The list goes on and on and on. And I think a lot of times, or in a lot of cases, across the West Coast, we're getting west of I-5 policies shoved on the east side of those states. But we don't have the luxury of higher production and higher value crops that, say, California and Western Washington and Western Oregon do. So there is a big disconnect, and I think, and I know this, having met with several legislators, they don't get that, or they don't care. They pretend to not get it. But after the third time I've told it to some of them, I'm having a hard time deciding if they don't get it or they don't care. But that's what bothers me. I'm more than happy to compete with Idaho, but let's make it a level playing field.
That's a great point. Who wants to jump in on that one? Go ahead, Carrie.
I'll go. So I printed this out and gave it to the chair and the director so they have it, and I can forward more copies of it to anybody. But it's kind of my presentation that I gave to the legislators when they were here a few weeks ago. And that is that in 24, a study was done by the Oregon State University that showed the head count of cattle in Klamath County was about 52,000. Today, it's around 27,000. We've lost about half the head count of cattle, which equates to about $47 million of revenue that those cattle would have given us. 210 jobs have been attributed to the loss. So that's a little bit on the workforce as well. And within that, and you're going to hear me say it a lot because it is the biggest issue that we have in my group as far as ranching and haying, is the water issues. And the fact that the water issues are pretty much dictated by the federal government and the state of California, and not so much by the state of Oregon. It's kind of a...
by choice.
Yeah. It's not something they really want to deal with.
Rick, I'll come to you. Yeah, I'll let you jump in right after me. I'll just jump in. I want to jump in on the cattle piece too. One of the struggles that my family really has right now is there isn't a clear path from field to family. And what I mean by that is when our cattle get to be 6, 7, 8 weeks, we ship them out. And to be honest with you, I'm shipping everything to California. I'm making a lot more money in California, but we would love, and I know I'm speaking for a lot of cattle producers, we'd love to keep our cattle right here in Klamath and sell directly to the consumer in Klamath. But what we're lacking is inspectors. We don't have a clear path forward to go through inspectors and market directly to the people of Klamath County. So we just don't do it. So I think that that's something we need to be thinking about moving down the road, is how do we incentivize projects and programs and get more inspectors in Klamath County so we can have these field to family concept that we just don't have right now. I know you're going to hear from Klamath Grown. I think that's on your agenda for tomorrow. That's an outstanding organization, but there's no way for me to put beef directly in Klamath Grown. There's just not a market to do that and a path forward to do that right now.
So I'm just going to jump in real quick. I invited Dale Robinette to come and talk about the grant that they received and what they're going to do as far as becoming inspectors.
Perfect.
USDA inspectors.
They're going to be Oregon State inspectors. They were not able to get USDA.
For meat.
For meat.
I just want to clarify.
Yes, for meat.
What kind of inspector
Great.
we're talking about.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Brooke?
Well, I wanted to add to Carrie's point with our loss of water, because when we lost the water in 20 and 21, as a brand inspector, I watched families sell out their whole herds, and it was heartbreaking. I mean, they love their livestock, and they couldn't keep them. It was so hard to watch. And for what reason? We have the land, we have the water, we have the ability to continue to produce these legacies of livestock, and they have no control over staying in the industry. And just to watch them call a truck, put them on the truck, and watch them leave, and not know if they're ever going to be able to get back into it. And it's not just about getting back into it. You've put every ounce of yourself into this herd. You are picking the bulls. You are picking the genetics. You're not just keeping this cow because, oh, it's Daisy's calf. It's that calf has all the attributes you want to produce a stellar calf to go to market. And they just watched it all walk away because they didn't know if they were going to have water next year, and they'd lost all their leases to the water buyouts. You cannot compete as a producer with the buyout money. I can't pay that kind of money for pasture. I'm not going to be able to pay somebody $10,000 for pasture, $20,000 for pasture. Our budget is a quarter of that. Our margins are very small, and to stay in business, they have to stay small. The outputs have to stay small. So watching those people, I mean, in the 6 years I've been an inspector, I haven't seen those people come back. And I don't know if they will.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
And now a lot of that land just sits fallow and unused because you can't use it to farm. It's too rocky, it's too hilly, it's not something you can run a tractor over and grow potatoes or grain or any of that. The cattle are there because they are the animal that can utilize that ground, and we've lost a lot of that. And we've lost the beauty of our basin to a lot of these fields becoming weeds. So, I mean, it affects so much more than just that little thing. So that was hard for me that year.
That's perfect. We've got about 6 more minutes on this topic. Scott, Mark, Commissioner, would you guys want to jump in on commodities?
Sure. I mean, I would echo both points. You know, as the chair of the DRA, I think that's probably one of our biggest struggles is trying to figure out, like, when you are trying to get through periods of low water and by incentivizing payment to get that family farm through that cycle, the adverse effect of that is people aren't able to then return to farming when there is opportunity to. And I think that's a heartbreaking thing and something that we continue to pound the table on anytime that we can talk to state or federal agencies, that even though we quote unquote are bridging a gap short term, the effect it's having on agriculture in Klamath County is overwhelmingly negative because people just can't come in and out to Brooks Point. So I think that's a really strong point of something. I think one of the things that does keep me up at night is just shifting policy in the West that's obviously changing the landscape of consumption of food that I grow, especially things like fresh market potatoes, which we, I think to Mike's point, we're very proud of. We think we have a niche market here that we can grow specialty, high quality, organic potatoes. But if my markets, which would be those people in Portland, Salem, Eugene, California, San Francisco, LA, are leaving, and those people are moving to other states like Texas or Arizona, all of a sudden the markets that that we had that niche for are going away, and we're shifting to more of that we'll say commodity-based approach, which is where we can't compete and we can't live, because that's the Idaho-Washington model. And I think that's something, an adverse effect of just general policies, maybe obviously outside of policies that you guys deal with, but those effects keep me up at night for sure.
And I can say a comment just in probably 20 seconds that making sure that they can be, or our producers can be consistent is really, really important from the holistic lens of the community, because when you're talking about your property tax base and the services that everyone expects local government to provide, we can't just some years provide law enforcement and some years not. We have to provide that all the time. We have to have a jail all the time. And in order to have those baseline services, we have to have a consistent property tax base. And these folks are it. And so when they are living like this, the rest of the community can't sustain that.
Yeah, I would say one of the things, and similar to the cattle situation, one of the other things that leaves with the lack of water is markets. We have lost markets for brew barley. We've lost markets for some of the fresh packed potato stuff. We've lost markets for mint. Trying to get mint to the tea leaf market because of a lack of water has shifted it out of the basin because of the threat. So, you know, things that keep me up at night are, what do I do with everything I'm raising? I'm trying to raise high value crops. I've got a lot of money into it. I'm employing a lot of people that are all depending on me to keep them fed and keep their families going. And that's everything from my pipe crew guys to my weeding crew to our harvest crew. there's a lot of people that are involved in our farm and that are counting on us to have a sustainable program for them and keep them going. Regulation, lack of water, those change everything for us, and they change everything for our markets. We are a trapped area from the standpoint we have two ways of transport, road and railroad. That's it. We don't have the luxury of the snake or the Columbia or some of the other ways to get crops to market. And so when people come to buy hay here, they're taking $65 a ton out of the price that a guy closer to market gets, because that's what it costs to freight it that way. And so fuel has a direct impact on that. Road taxes have a direct impact on that. Like all the different things, all the different regulation pieces that nickel and dime out of small business people that take our product to market are making it expensive for them, and we're at the point where we're below the cost of production. I mean, I know everybody's below the cost of production in a lot of crops this year. We are hamstrung even further just because of our location. And we're an important part of all of that. People come here from Germany to buy my tea leaf because they want to drive out here to my farm and they want to see wildlife fly by on the horizon. They want to see Mount Shasta. They want to see the water. They want to see the blue sky. They don't want to see the smog and smoke, everything that goes with other areas of production where they're sourcing their mint in third world countries. They come to the Klamath Basin because that's what they want to think when they're drinking that cup of tea. It's important to them. That is part of the image. That is part of what you're selling, and that's part of what I'm selling too. But when we throw in regulation, I'll give you a great example, and it's honestly how I used to think of regulation as an opportunity. Regulation created something that would be a barrier for somebody else, that if I was willing to try to overcome that, it would give me a unique opportunity to do something. And tea leaf is a great example of that. And this example is that Germany was coming to Oregon to buy all their tea leaf, and we were raising oil. California did not allow us to use comite, a miticide that is used to try to control two-spotted spider mites. Me going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, I was used to using sulfur as a way to try to control pests in vine grapes as part of my SAE experiences there. We were doing that on our farm, and ultimately, all of a sudden, Germany put up a regulation that said no comite. Every grower in the state of Oregon uses comite. So all of a sudden there was no mint available in Oregon. Brought the market to me and gave me an opportunity, the California side of things. That's how we got into tea leaf. By the same token, California took away one of my herbicides a couple of years ago, and for 3 years while it was going through relicensing during COVID, we tried to keep our market alive and just about broke the farm trying to raise a conventional crop organically while we didn't have those weed herbicides to try to connect. But the regulations are getting tighter and they're getting harder, and they're coming to labor, they're coming to energy, they're coming to everywhere that we look. There's something that's coming at us and chipping away at our ability and our freedom to do things. And quite candidly, it's getting to the point where you're threatening an entire area when you combine all these different things, transportation and fuel and all because everything that comes in here costs us more to get than it does somebody in the Willamette Valley or somebody in the Columbia. All of those costs are on top of us. So understand the economics of the situation here are much different than they are anywhere else.
So I'll just touch on one quick thing, and then we're going to move on to the next topic to keep you guys all on schedule. Here's what keeps me up at night and why I fight so hard for agriculture in the basin. Agriculture in the basin is one of our largest economic drivers. It adds $367 million into our economy on an annual basis. If you think back 20 years, and I asked you, what do you think about Klamath Falls? You would say it's a timber town, and I would say you were right, but it's not any longer. Because of poor regulation and poor policy, we in essence have lost our timber industry, which was in all account our largest economic driver. And now I see that same type of poor policy and poor regulation being instilled on agriculture in the basin, and we're slowly dying. So what's going to happen to Klamath Falls when we lose agriculture and we just basically say there's another $367 million gone out of this economy? What are we and how are we going to survive? When you look back at Klamath Falls in the 20s, we were 25,000 people and we were predicted to be the largest town in all of Oregon. And at the time, we were the second largest town in Oregon, only to Portland. You know what our population is today? 25,000. When we lost timber, we in essence killed we severed a main artery in Klamath County. And that's why I fight so hard for agriculture. What's going to happen to us and the generations after us when we continue to outregulate or overregulate agriculture and we in essence lose it? So that's what keeps me up at night. So let's go on to our next topic. And that one is stability and competitiveness. In a time when agriculture faces everything from market fluctuations to regulations and global competition, what do you feel is most critical to keeping the Klamath Basin agriculture both stable and competitive? Who'd like to jump in?
I think you just told Scott to go first.
I think it was Mark. I'm just a guest.
What keeps us stable and competitive? They've had 4 days to think of these questions.
Did not.
Sorry. I would say what keeps us competitive is the uniqueness that we've already talked about at the Klamath. The soil in this basin is very unique, very high quality, strong lake bottom soil that can produce extremely well in a short period of time. I think it is what provides us with the type of market opportunities that Scott and Mike have both mentioned. In the processing onion of California, like the California processing business that starts down at the bottom end of California, moves up through the state, ends in the Klamath Basin because the quality of the onion coming out of the Klamath Basin is what they can use to blend with all the lower quality stuff that they get throughout the rest of the season. Same thing happens in the chipping industry. They use Frito-Lay, Kettle Foods, those companies use the potatoes out of the Klamath Basin as their storage crop season because they're using those other areas as their field run potatoes, but can't hold through the winter months in storage crop because they don't have the quality to do that. So our niche has always been high quality, and that's related to our climate, it's related to our soil, and just the gift that we've been given, I guess I'd say. And so I think that still can be our niche. Again, I highlight that's what we need to focus on continuing. And if we can provide stability in those areas that we've highlighted as risk, water, regulation, I think we can still be very competitive because the quality we produce here.
I could say, sure, I'll take a stab at this. And this answer is going to feel not direct to the question, but I think when I quickly get to the end of it, you'll have something to think about. Commissioner roles are very unique in that we both are the representatives of the people as they interface with their county government, but then we're also the representatives of the county government, right? Like I oversee a planning department and different things. And so it's this very unique role. And so oftentimes we'll have people that are in the quote government role, like for example, a public works director or planner, and a citizen will have an issue, and it's sort of my job to come in and represent both sides, almost like a mediator maybe would be the best word I could use. So I've had this experience multiple times, and this is where I'm getting to my point. So I will be called in a situation like that. For example, we had a previous county planner, and I got called in, and it was an issue with a citizen, and they sort of kept talking at the same thing. Well, no, you can't do that. Well, yeah, this is what I'm going to do in this. And we got through a conversation with me sort of sitting there quietly in the middle that went on for, I kid you not, almost an hour of just this. until finally, in like the last like 3 minutes before the meeting was going to wrap, the county planner just said, or you know what you could do? You could just file a dut, 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 dut. And it was like, what? Why didn't we lead with that? Like, that seems like a very reasonable thing to do. But it didn't come out until so long. Another very, very super quick example is when we had several emergencies going on here, and I won't keep this going on too long, but one of them had to do with dry domestic wells. And I was interfacing with someone from Oregon Emergency Management, OEM, that got assigned to us. And we really needed resources here. And this individual kept saying to me, Commissioner, are you requesting that, are you saying you don't have the resources, so you're requesting that the state step in? And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, you know, and then I'm like talking all over to myself. And finally, by like the third time he said it, I was like, oh yes, that is what I'm requesting, that you step in. And he was like, perfect, done. Like basically, like practically wrote me a check. And I realized like, oh, there's a way to ask to get to the end. Or in that example with the planner of like, there's something they know that, but it needs to be revealed by someone else. So this is my long way of saying that I think what would help with competitiveness and some like policy stability is getting policy makers or policy enforcement people to have more of that perspective of like, we're trying to get you to what's going to be helpful instead of we're trying to be an enforcement.
Can I kind of tack on that? So one of the conflicts that we have here is with the branding. It's a difficult subject to kind of talk about, but there's a lot of regulations involved in how brands are given out. I'm going to kind of lead with the fact that, like I said, I've been here for about 10 years, and when we decided we were going to start raising cattle, I designed a brand, and I was going to try and get that approved. Everybody told me, expect to wait 5 to 8 years before your brand would be approved. That's what it was kind of tracking at. And I found that I could potentially find a brand similar to what I wanted on a already approved, not in use list. And that's what I was able to do, and I was able to get my brand. I know several people who have been waiting for 5 years to get their brand approved, and there's a 2-bar rule that I'm sure you guys may or may not be aware of. There's discussions on eliminating that. We would really like for that to become a priority for our industry and make that move forward on a faster pace than I think that it might be tracking. And so my ask is, can that be looked at? It's no longer needed. It's based off of something that was years and years ago that it's just not relevant anymore. That, and then as far as the conflict and non-conflict, in the paperwork I gave you, there's a couple of screenshots of brands that are listed as not approved because of conflict, and then a brand that was approved as non-conflict, but it's really similar in the same county at the same location.
In the same town.
Right. Beyond the same county, it's same town. So there's just a lot of confusion as to what is allowed, what's not allowed, how it's determined. I'm not going to put Brooke on the spot unless she wants to take it, since this is her livelihood.
I'll add kind of a different perspective of this, where this fits into your question of competitiveness and stability. Fort Klamath is a huge area for us when it comes to importing cattle into the state from California. We have huge producers that run anywhere from 1,000 head to upwards of 20,000 head per person in this area. Like Mark said, we have the best soil. It puts pounds on those calves that they cannot get that same weight gain anywhere else on the West Coast. We have this prime place, and these guys have a really hard time getting through the brand department to either get an out-of-state brand permit, which in turn brings money into the brand department. That's a $1.75 a head for every animal we look at on out-of-state brand permits, plus the $65 registration fee, the $35 for us to travel there. that would be a good way. If these guys can't get their brand registered, they could use that permit. We could make a lot more money on our end to keep the brand department going. I just lost my train of thought completely. We need more communication with these guys. A lot of them didn't know that that was an option for them. And they've been applying for years or been told, you know, you're never going to get that iron, there's a conflict. And it's not necessarily that their conflict is the same brand. It's that there's a list of other images that are a conflict, not a visually similar brand. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why these conflicts are in place, because they're costing us a lot of money at the brand department. We're losing revenue on irons that should be issued. You know, we're losing the yearly 2-year income on registering that brand. We're losing out on possibly giving out out-of-state brand permits. There's a way to bring in more money for our department by using the people we have coming into our area. And to give them more opportunity is going to make these people want to stay in the Klamath Basin. There's a lot of challenges here with water. I mean, they don't get water, they can't send as many cattle. So if we were to help these brand regulations become something that were easier for them to obtain without putting them in conflict with another brand, we would have more options for more cattle to come into the area, more of a reason for them to want to stay. And I think that's really important. We want to help our producers. We want to be there for our producers. That's our job. And I think we're headed in the right direction with the cattlemen and what they would like to see. And I think that would really help the brand department's bottom line.
Mike, I'm going to end this piece with you, and then I'm going to move on. So what keeps agriculture stable and competitive?
I think, Dave, we have to try to find a way to get our lawmakers and our policymakers to be a little bit better connected and to understand and to actually recognize and respond to that. So the low-hanging fruit today, I'm sure everyone has seen the 2 stacks of legislative testimony that were submitted for the special session going on right now. 94% oppose the ODOT funding, 94%. And they're going to shove it right down our throats. That's real. It's real, and they don't care, right? And here's the problem. That affects us. I, in rough numbers, probably have 50 titled vehicles that those fees are going to, what, double, triple on? Another 6 cents a gallon fuel taxes, when we're already on average 40, 50 cents higher per gallon than our competitors in other states. The disconnect is too much. Unfortunately, it doesn't affect the folks driving Priuses and bicycles, right? But even then, 94% of them oppose it. It's that bad. So that's the low-hanging fruit. Here's another example. Casey, start squirming. As I mentioned, 26 years on Shipping Point Inspection Advisory Committee, right? And Casey has no reason to squirm. Do not let the director hear me say this, but I've come to learn it's not the department's fault, right? It's not. But here's the problem. If I call for an inspection today, it's going to cost me $75 an hour. It's going to be a 4-hour minimum. That's assuming the inspector's not on overtime, which that's beyond my control, right? And mileage. So it's going to be pretty expensive. That inspector's probably going to get somewhere around $25 an hour out of that, maybe. Where's that other threefold going, right? It's going to overhead, it's going to fees, it's going to silly things that the governor's office and the legislature are basically taxing producers on. That's what it is. You know, we're paying for law libraries. Come on. It's killing us. The department is not able to be competitive. Industry is seeking alternatives. They're seeking ways to actually get away from the need for those things. That's not good for anybody. But it's happening, and it's real, and it's not new. It's not new. And you know, the disconnect has got so far. I mean, I can tell you in the world I live in, both being on that advisory committee and dealing with our district manager and our employees here in Klamath for that same period of time, they're working more hours than they get paid for. It's not fair, but it's either that or it piles up and it reflects poorly upon them. So they're out there busting their behinds to do things. The department can't pay them correctly, but 47 other people are taking a piece of that pie, and it's just not fair. The other thing that's playing into that, and this is just, it's saddening and it's sickening, and it shouldn't have ever got here, and it's no one's fault in the department or in this room, but the department doesn't even dictate or affect what employee wages and benefits look like, right? When you boil it all down, who's doing that? SEIU. We have a labor union that's dictating what and how things are going to happen. That's not good for anybody. It's really not. Take a look at the number of employees that have opted out of the union in the state. That should tell a pretty strong story.
Thanks, Mike. Those are good points. We've got about 10 minutes. I want to wrap this up and open it up to Q&A from the board. So let's talk about priorities. And Commissioner Minty, I'm going to read the question. I'm going to tell you one of our priorities as a lobbyist from the water users, but it's going to tee you up nicely, and it's manage aquifer recharge. So think about that. So looking ahead, if you could put one priority at the very top of the list for agriculture in our region, things that really matter for producers and our communities alike, what would that priority be and why? And I'm going to start us off, and then I'm going to cue you up, Commissioner. When we sat down and identified our legislative priorities for the last long session from the Klamath Water Users Association, one of our priorities was manage aquifer recharge projects. We find ourselves in a position right now where the federal government wants to limit our surface water. They just want the water to go downriver for endangered species or whatever their cause may be, but it forces us irrigators to go underground and start pumping from the aquifers. So now we've got OWRD that wants us out of the ground. So we find ourselves in this tug and pull and push and pull concept where the feds are fighting us above ground and the state's fighting us underground. So we're really interested in how are we protecting our aquifer in meaningful ways. So what are we doing with runoff in the winter? When all this water is hitting the pavement, it's just going down the river. What are we doing when there's not a demand on water in the winter for agriculture, and how are we storing that? So Klamath County, when I was still a commissioner at the time, working side by side with Commissioner Minty, we did a feasibility study to look at what managed aquifer recharge projects really can look like in the basin. So I'm going to tee that up. That's going to be a priority of the water users going into the next short session again next year to really start driving how we're going to protect our aquifers in the future. Commissioner?
I could just add to what Dave said in that I would just say oftentimes, in my view, it's not always that scarcity mentality about the resource, it's that we lack creativity and commitment. And so, I mean, yes, we've supported a look or a pilot project or different things to help support that recharging the aquifer, because that is the next big thing that we're looking down the barrel at as a community in terms on the waterfront. And then I'll just make one quick plug, because you are going to hear from Klamath Grown tomorrow. The county, OSU Extension, and Klamath Grown have a concept around a local food hub. This is way different than mostly what we've been talking about on the panel, but we are in fundraising mode. So if you ever see grant opportunities or other financial opportunities, the county is sort of the key sponsor of the project, but we have identified as a community that while we grow some of the best food in the country, we don't have a good way to tell that story and to connect it directly to the community. So we're in the development of a food hub, and that I hope maybe gives you one positive thing. I feel like we've said a lot of like very down, you're gonna be like, these people from Klamath are big downers. So that's something we're really looking forward to and excited about.
That's a good point. Mike, I'm gonna go to you. I've kind of got you last a couple times, and then we're gonna make our way back this way. What's your #1 priority for agriculture?
It's going to sound simple and it's going to sound ridiculous, but it's survive until things get better.
I agree.
Carrie?
I think I've already said it like 15 times, but water. But then we also have a new threat that's on the horizon that we kind of just want to touch base on and make sure that the subject is brought up. But the New World screwworm, there is concern. We do, it was a long time ago, 72 to 76, when that was a problem here in the States before, and it was in 6 states, some of our neighbors, and, we're talking, approximately 100,000 cattle lost, tens of thousands of millions, or over $10 million spent in the eradication of it. And I don't know that the feds have that money set aside to do it again. I don't know what the state has set up for if it's detected in our neighboring states. What are we doing with our border? How are we going to address it? It's just kind of something that is a priority for us right now. We know that the border is closed, that they're not bringing them across, but that doesn't mean that the worm's not getting across. It's been detected in a few people already and some cattle already, especially in Texas. So.
Commissioner, you want to add anything to that, or Mark?
You want to go? You want?
If you want to clean up.
Sure.
All right. So, being asked what your 2 priorities are that you would focus on is like, the other side of that is which ones you're going to get killed by that you're not going to focus on. We spend the exercise that Dave referenced of trying to figure out our priorities at Klamath water users. We do that in our irrigation districts too. We're doing that on our farms daily. And it's coming from so many fronts in so many different ways, with a lack of time. You're giving up something if you're going to fight them all. And you have to fight them all to be able to survive. And that's both as a farm, that's as a family, and that's as a community. It hits us from all sides. And I'm talking about everything from our power costs that we have here to the markets, to the water. On down the list, labor, labor and all the policies that come with that are hitting us, that we're trying to comply with. We're reacting to people that don't have, that shape policy, that have no idea what it's like on my farm. They've got no idea that I've got a guy that's worked on our farm for 47 years. He's not there because it's a bad place. He's there because he's part of our family. He's part of what we do, and we don't treat him bad. We went through the process of doing Rainforest Alliance a few years ago and becoming the second farm in America that was certified under Rainforest Alliance. If you've ever got a bag of coffee and you see the little tree frog that's on it and the little sticker, that's Rainforest Alliance. It comes out of Costa Rica. It's something that everybody grabbed onto in third world, or across Europe and some of America, as being like the gold standard. And when they came and they went through all the different things that they expected us to do, we were like, we do this. And we don't do it just because somebody tells us we have to do it. We do it because we're good people and the people that work for us matter to us. But there's a misconception out there that farming community isn't that way, or that we exploit labor, or that we exploit opportunities. And we're not. We have to survive, and to survive, you got to treat people well, and you got to treat your markets well, and you got to treat your land well, you got to treat your water well. So all these different things that we're all facing, that we're trying to overcome, is just a misunderstanding by the community, or misconception that's promoted by other interests that are not out here on the land, that make assumptions over what things are happening here. I think that the thing that we all need to work together to overcome is that it's not, even though there's big differences between us and the Willamette Valley, or us and La Grande, or us in the Central Valley of California, we're all fighting the same image problem. We just happen to live in a lot prettier place doing it. But we fight the water deal, and it's the hardest thing here. And the hardest thing about that is the demeanor of our community, because we're beaten down and we're tired. Mark spent his whole farm career with a lack of water. I came back from college in 1997. We lost the water in 2001. My wife married me in 2002, and I thought, whew, after going through 2001, what is she thinking? But she's here. And when we go drill wells and we try to do things, we're trying not just to get ourselves to the next year, but we're also trying to drag as many of our neighbors with us as we can by pumping well water and taking care of wildlife and trying to find a balance. And I think that we're at a point where a lot of our resource agencies that are around us are starting to recognize the importance of agriculture to wildlife and to clean water and getting water back to the river. We are on a pendulum swing, not just politically on what happens here and who's in charge and who shuts our water off. We are also on a pendulum swing of, we had a good system here, and that system went completely sideways with the idea of dewatering the land and sending it all down the river. And the consequences of that have been that we have infrastructure cracking and diminishing here within the project, within the Klamath Basin as a whole, from cattle to crops, everything in between, and refuges, and wildlife, and the fact that we aren't cleaning up water that's going down the Klamath River the way that historically agriculture was the sink for those nutrients that were in that water. And we pulled that out and we turned it into a crop and we shipped it someplace else where somebody that was calling us bad people was enjoying the food that we were nourishing them with. So it's a frustrating thing, and that's a long ways of saying, how do I pick two?
Madam Chair, before I turn it over to you for Q&A, I just want to thank the panel. Thank you for, you want a shot at it, Mark?
All I would add, and it's maybe just a couple examples, short examples. Like Scott mentioned, I came back and I was in high school in 2001 when the water was shut off in Klamath, and I went to college and came right back through it. And probably some of the things that are most gratifying is when we've had, say, our little baseball little league, Orcal Little League, has a sign up, and we went from 100 to 150 kids participating, right? Because that means that our small communities are surviving, that we're stabilizing. When my child's third grade class goes from 17 to 18, it's a big deal in Malin that we got another family coming back. And I think that's what you're hearing from us is we're seeking stabilization, and all of those threats, whether that be regulation, tax, whether that be policy, those are the things that affect stabilization. And when I look at my employees, or I look at my community, I think all of them are mostly seeking a way to just have a path to raise a family, have a path to live a happy life, and be in these small towns and enjoy it. And so that's, I think, what I would add.
Those are excellent points, and I apologize for missing you, Mark. Those were excellent. Madam Chair, again, before we turn it over to you for Q&A, thank you to the panel for working with me to put together a presentation that I hope was meaningful. So I'm looking forward to seeing what their questions may come from that. I respect you all tremendously. You're all very good friends of mine, so thank you for working with me to get that done. Speaking of respect, I just want to take one more moment to have a shout out to Tracy Liskey and his wife Susan that are in the audience. They are amazing people that have been producers here in the basin for probably longer than I've been alive, but tremendous people, great resources, and I would do anything for them. So thanks for being here to the two of you. Madam Chair, it's all yours.
Dave and panel, I just want to thank you to the effort that went into this. And yeah, it got more upbeat at the end, so thank you very much. I really appreciated that. But reality, and we as board members need to hear the struggles and need to understand what the issues are. We may have some programs and answers in some areas that we're working on as a positive. Learning about that helps us reinforce that. But there's also some things that we have a reality check, but we do have relationships, obviously, with other regulatory agencies within Oregon and the federal government. that, to the extent that we can influence for that part of our hat, it's very important for us to understand that. So with that, I'll open it to questions.
There must be refreshments across the...
There are refreshments.
Thank you,
Barbara.
Chair. Barbara Boyer. I had a couple of questions. So I heard a couple of you mention incentivize. Any ideas on incentivizing getting young farmers onto the fields?
I could put on my Klamath County School District hat for a second and say, that our district and our county, both city and county schools, has done a tremendous effort in the skills and trade and leaning into that and really shaping opportunities for young people, not just in agriculture trades, but all sorts of trades ranging from nursing to construction to plumbing to agriculture. I do agree with Scott in that in agriculture, mostly it's an image problem that we face, not necessarily and I think that most kids, if I get them out to the farm and we start talking about opportunities, linking examples I talked about earlier, there's a reality of, I didn't realize that you could do that here. I didn't realize that those were opportunities that existed in agriculture. So I think from the department's perspective, I think that's somewhere where you could really lean into and start building those connections with at the high school level, and I would say the junior high school level, and building on programs like Scott is doing, just getting them out on the farms, connecting those dots between what producers are doing today, not 20 years ago, not 30 years ago, but the challenges and the opportunities and the equipment and the technology that we're using today, and letting people build off of that, be my answer.
Have any of you had the opportunity to see the documentary World Without Cows? Have you ever heard of it? So we could definitely use help with getting the messaging out about the corrections in the information that's been disseminated to the general public about greenhouse gases, et cetera. So, everybody knows that the world is dying because of cow farts and cow burps, right? So the reality is it's less than 2% of the greenhouse gases come from cows. But that's not what you've heard. So if there's a way that the Department of Agriculture could help to disseminate that information to the general public and clear up misconceptions and misinformation, that would go a long way to getting younger and more people involved and interested in agriculture. And if you have the opportunity to see the documentary, please do.
Yeah, it is a good documentary.
We have a few more questions lined up. Go ahead.
Yeah, talk about incentivizing real quick. Mark touched on, we've done a really good job in the basin of providing not internships, but apprenticeship programs for people to get into the trades. But what we really lack is funding to continue some of those programs or to enhance those opportunities to kids coming out of high school. There was a bill at the legislature this last short session that didn't grow any legs at all, but we were really, really excited for it. And it allowed for a different pocket of money to be able to pay for apprenticeship programs. Mm-hmm. So we were really excited to expand some opportunities down here with some different avenues or different streams of money, but unfortunately that never even got to committee. So that's something that we'd like to see come back up in the short session and try to drive some opportunities for funding sources to incentivize kids to get into agriculture through these apprenticeship programs.
Okay. Director Norris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just for anyone on the panel. I'm curious, do any of you guys, or do you know, are there programs or grants that anyone utilizes in the basin that from the USDA or ODA currently?
I'll let you guys talk to that,
Before or after Doge? I think the big question, is where some of that goes. I think probably the most common things that you see is, as far as grants and things like that, are really kind of focused around ecology type things, like trying to help with watershed issues and things like that. NRCS through EQIP and other programs has been a big part. We had K-EQIP as a result of 2001, where there was $50 million from the government that was put in here to try to transition us all to where we used to have a flood and sprinkler type of rotation throughout the basin, which candidly is an important part of what happened to us, is that being taken away. And it used to be joked about that you'd come over the top of the hill and you'd have to put your sunglasses on because of all the shiny pipe that was out here at one point. That's all changed. A lot of those projects are over 20 years old now, but the effects of that, the effects of the government trying to help, which was to push us into pressurized irrigation and having better uniformity distribution and all the things that went along with that sounded great at the time, have led us to a point where we've dewatered our local aquifer. We aren't adding enough water back to it. And so when you're living on a lake bed and you take the water off of that lake bed that used to be at 3 feet and it's now more like 10 or 12, there's repercussions to that. So meaningful, thoughtful, like how do you look that far into the future? The other part of that is that power is a big part of it. Everything is dependent on power now, and our power costs are disgusting. It is literally going to make it impossible to raise cereal grain or alfalfa with the power rates that we are living with in the markets that we have here right now. So the biggest thing that we need to have is a way to a more stable power supply or power pricing, and that doesn't matter if you're in California or Oregon, it's the same dang thing. That is a big part of where we are now, who we are now, because of government help. So when you ask about whether there's that kind of thing happening here now, not so much. But the repercussions of not well thought out programs in the past have been pretty painful.
Yeah. Director Dill?
Okay.
Just to add,
That's okay. No problem.
Because I'm just going to shift gears just a bit, just so there's something else. I think you'll hear from her tomorrow on the agenda, but Klamath County School District does receive grant funding for its Farm to School program, which has been extremely successful also in helping link the connection between the community and its food. And you'll be hearing from her tomorrow, but it is part of a key piece of the school district's push to be connected. I mean, that's a grant that's going on.
Thank you. Director Dill, did you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've heard a lot about regulation and policy, and I wanted to ask about buyer requirements that are coming in terms of carbon sequestration, tracking carbon, tracking emissions, voluntary third-party certifications. Are you feeling any pressure from your buyers, your customers, retailers, people that you're packing for, to act on some of these things?
Yes. I don't mean to, but absolutely. I mean, it is. So, a few of the key customers that are in the basin, some that we deal with, and other growers or companies like Walmart, Frito-Lay, I mentioned Kettle Food, In-N-Out, Kroger, all are extremely focused on those type of programs and are approaching it in different ways. Some are having requirements from levels of food safety, whether that be global GAP food safety standards or other, say, privately certified standards. On top of that, companies are approaching it with incentivizing different programs or different farming practices. Frito-Lay has really taken the approach of building out a program to incentivize all of its growers to meet different baseline standards and then build off of that, which is an interesting approach. Walmart so far hasn't done that, but is very interested in our input costs and tracking that back from a carbon footprint. So yes, we're very aware and having to be very knowledgeable of our impacts, and that definitely drives what I would say our investments are. We're really looking at how we can improve, whether that be reducing tillage passes or finding more efficiencies in equipment or in strategies of rotation. And all of those things are compounded by those requirements or those incentives. I'd say the only difficulty with that is it kind of goes back to that stability conversation I was talking about earlier. We can be heading in that direction and then get railroaded by a water change that totally upsets the apple cart when it comes to our plan and our practice of what we are doing to try to meet that customer. So it's not necessarily even the commodity itself or the crop itself. It could be the plan or the program that we were trying to build that whole story around. I know you were going to jump on it.
Yeah, and I completely agree with all of that. And yes, I do, and I find that it almost seems like some customers, perhaps all of them, don't really know what they want. They want something, they're going to require something, and it changes. And I am glad, I'm proud to show my farm and what I do. I'm trying to search my memory banks here. Madam Director, you might remember, but I think in 2001 or 2, I was the first fresh pack potato shed anywhere to pass USDA via ODA, GAP, GHP inspection. I then worked with those same folks and I helped ODA write the first GAP, GHP program for peppermint oil. So I embrace it, I believe in it, and those were programs then that made sense. They really did, and I appreciated the fact that ODA took something that at the time Albertsons was shoving at me via Primus Labs that was so irrelevant. Yeah. I mean, it was insane. ODA came in and fixed it. So that, I sit here and I probably sound fairly negative, but ODA is dear to me, right? We have conquered some pretty tough challenges and they've helped me really bring some good common sense solutions to things. But here's the other part. My wife and I, a couple years ago, went through a 2-day audit with a mint oil buyer, and they weren't buying any mint oil at the time. And let me back up. I have since dropped the mint still certification because it didn't sell any oil. The buyers loved it, but they wouldn't pay for it. They wouldn't even support it. But anyway, this 2-day audit, and I was the only producer that year across the western states that got a gold certification. But one of the questions was, kid you not, do you have slaves? Do you have slaves? Seriously, I had to fly somebody in to ask that question. So it's that kind of stuff. And then most recently I was comparing notes with some of my fellow producers of potatoes last year. Our Global Gap auditor, who flew up from LA, and the Global Gap is getting out of hand, quite frankly. It's just some of the things they're getting into. But when I compared notes with some of these other producers, I ran the numbers on what that auditor charged us for travel. 3 of us that I know of that he did on the same trip. And I think when it was all said and done, he could have flown first class around the world 14 times on what we paid him to travel from LA to here. I'm not kidding. It was close to $20,000 travel to do 3 audits over the course of a few days. So like anything, this has grown legs. It's starting to become a self-sustaining thing that's funding people, and it needs to get brought back in check.
Well, I hate to cut us off on that note necessarily, but again, the reality checks that you give us are really important, and we're going to have time. We don't have time now for questions anymore for the group, but I really would invite everyone in the room, and hopefully others will join us to go across the street up to the 3rd floor for our little reception, because I know I had about 5 questions I wanted to ask, and so I'll zoom in on some of you if you can stay. So anyway, again, thank you very much. Appreciate all your input. Oh, and I do officially have to have closing remarks. Thank you for joining us this evening. The board meeting is adjourned for the day, and we will convene at 8:30 tomorrow morning in this room, Thursday, September 4th. For those that are going to be participating remotely, please use the same Teams link as we had today. We're not changing that same Teams link. And again, hopefully we can have folks join us for our reception. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.